Me, not us.
Okay, go live. All right, so we are live at the moment. We are streaming. Let's just wait for this to pick up on YouTube and on Instagram. Hello, Juliet.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Again. Iggy.
Here it comes, and we are live on Instagram.
Oh, yay!
Clicking, go live. Oh, okay.
Yay! Woohoo!
So let's just
Did it.
live. Juliet, are we live on YouTube?
I can't see it. Just saying.
It just takes a couple of seconds to pick up.
Yeah.
I won't be able to see it from there. I'm just check Instagram and make sure that we are live on there. Oh, Cryptid Women's Society is live on Instagram. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yay!
So talented.
No, we just won't get YouTube. It's one of the other guys.
Like, honestly, don't expect too much.
Oh my god!
So we'll wait for it to pick up on YouTube. It's pretty good, so we should be straight in there relatively quickly. So just give us a couple of seconds. Yep, we're live on YouTube. Sweet as. Hello and welcome to our very first real achieved streaming. Woo, 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 woo. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Instagram. If you want to go and see us on YouTube, jump on Cryptid Women's Society. I think it's at Cryptid Women's Society, all one word. So go and jump over there.
Go jump, jump, jump.
Oh, right. So proud of us.
Well, actually, I've got to give Lisa credit because she's pretty much done most of it. So, yay, Lisa.
Honestly, it's not easy, right? It's not easy. And I admire so many people that are just freaking good at this stuff because I'm just fucking not.
Yeah. I'm just trying to, I don't even know. I'm sorry, you just have to bear with me. I've got a random keyboard because my one died and I didn't have any AA batteries. So I've just plugged in Katie's one.
Oh, cool. All right.
But I'm trying to figure out how to make my screen a little bit brighter and I can't find anything.
Yeah, you could just push that little sunshine. Find the sunshine on the keypad.
There is no sunshine because it's not an Apple. It's
just
not
F2. No, I don't know. That's right.
I don't do that. I'll probably bloody cut everything off.
Leave it alone. Anyway, hey, we are talking about yowies today. Yeah. Hey, Juliet, what's a yowie?
Yowie, it's a cute, cuddly little creature in Australia. You know, like all the cute little cuddly creatures. No, it is not cute and cuddly. The yowie is Australia's version of Bigfoot. So they have been here since the dream time of with the Aboriginal stuff. I'll go a little bit into that. And right through very, very, there's been hundreds and hundreds of sightings right up until, this year there's been sightings. It's really, really interesting. They're kind of they're said to be more of a reddish color. There is this theory that they're a bit more of a reddish color. But I've kind of like a lot of the stories that we've kind of gone through in the research that we've looked into, that can kind of vary. But the one kind of redeeming factor which does kind of come out, which is pretty much like all Australian animals over here, they are a lot more aggressive. They're said to be very, very aggressive. There are also said to be a lot of missing people in Australia, and there is a very well-known yowie man here, Dean Harrison, sorry, did I get his last name right, who says that he believes that there are a lot of missing persons that are involved with the yowie, and that this information has been passed between him and the military and basically DOC, and which is basically forest. What would we call them? What are they called in New Zealand? Like the forest people, like DOC people, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, DOC reservation.
Yeah, DOC reservation and stuff like that. So yeah, which is really interesting. Yeah, because a lot of people go missing in the desert here. They go missing in the bush. The stats are pretty high. It's about, I think it was about 38,000 on average people go missing here. Most of them are found, but on an average, 2,000 people every year are not found. So
Wow.
that is a lot of people. A lot
yeah.
of people.
And it's interesting, like that you say, you know, like obviously Dean is incredibly influential in the Yowie industry and the cryptid industry in Australia. There's not many people that are doing that sort of stuff. So he's incredibly influential. He's got a massive pull and he's got a huge base of knowledge, man. Like you got to give it to the guy. He's got a huge knowledge base. He knows what he's talking about as far as Yowies go. He's lived it forever and ever and ever. And so is his team. I know he's got a group of people around him that help him and help build Yowie research. Australia.
Yeah.
And
after his own encounters, and he has been aggressively. He said he's been aggressively chased. I'm not sure attacked, but very.
And to follow on from those park rangers and you know government officials sharing information, and I know that happens over in the States quite a lot, where they've got a lot of park rangers over there. There's a huge amount of bushland and that sort of stuff in the States. And you know, there's always stories being shared between the park rangers and you know, I guess investigators.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, you can just imagine what those people see out there. You know, there's some really strange, you know, and that's it. These all the stories that come out. There's some really strange things out there that. Number one, are not recorded, or you know, people don't want to talk about it, or they'll talk about it 20 years later. You know what I mean? That's a lot of stories that we come across, isn't it? You know that, you know, they're like, yeah, you know, I had this encounter like 20 years ago. You know, it was really funny. My daughter and her partner were out with friends, and he is the friend that was with is like very kind of strict, very religious, and doesn't believe all this stuff. And they were talking about, we'd been talking about, I think, Yowies or something earlier that day. And so Daniel kind of turned around and said, oh, you know, we're talking about Yowies and we're right. And this guy stopped and literally turned around and said, oh my God, I had an encounter like something like 15 years ago or something. So he almost ran one over on one of the back roads here in Victoria.
Oh,
so, and he'd never said anything to anyone, and they were just like, oh, okay.
It's mental.
Yeah.
And so what was the number of missing people you said, Juliet?
Like all over Australia, about 38,000. But what they call it is long-term missing people, which is around 2,000.
Is that per year?
That's yearly. That's about yearly.
Wow. Okay, so that's a fair amount of people going missing, and we know that you know Australia's vast, right, and arid in many, many ways. If you go off track and run out of water, you're screwed, right?
Yeah. That's one of the. I think that's probably one of the biggest problems here is like the desert here, the outback here. If you don't know where water is, there's no chance. You know, you're pretty much screwed. Whereas in New Zealand, you get lost in the bush. If you can keep warm and dry, you're always going to have a water source nearby. You know, that's the thing. You know, it's whereas Australia is very, very barren. You know, even in the bush and stuff like that. And you know, we know in you know the New Zealand bush and here, you know, you can walk 5 feet into it and be completely lost. It's really kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
So there's all these percentages of different, you know, so there's, you know, not everybody, some of them are kind of, you know, because they call it the long term. So that's people that have also decided that they've had enough of life and they've buggered off and gone somewhere, or, you know.
So then it begs the question of, okay, so Yowies are hairy men, right? They're Bigfoot or the Australian cousin to the Sasquatch or, you know, whatever. So it's so hot, it's so desolate, it's so arid in these parts of Australia. How the hell do they hide? How do they survive?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. It's like, I mean, you've got the bush. So I presume, you know, there are caves and cave systems here as well. I mean, that's something, you know, that we have spoken about, you know, the cave system here in Australia. We don't know really kind of how advanced that kind of cave system is, you know, not like the Appalachian Mountains and stuff like that in the States, you know, where it goes for miles. I mean, that's it. You know, you can go. Where would they hide? You know, that's the big thing. Where would they hide? Where would they live? Do they go into caves or do they go into
right
you know, kind of?
So there's
the area.
there's theories of Yowies using the cave systems, living in the caves around Australia. Am I correct?
Some, not much, because we don't actually have a lot. So I mean that's it. It's like a lot of the sightings are kind of like on the east coast. So you're like kind of going from like Queensland, kind of down this way, New South Wales. That is kind of where the majority of the sightings are. And a lot of that area is bushland. So it's, you know, what we call bush, you would call forest. So there are some really thick, scrubby areas there, and areas there and mountains there that people just haven't walked on in thousands of years. You know, so there are these places there for them to hide. Like, do I think they're running around the outback? No, not in the desert areas. They would need to stay where are food sources.
Yeah.
And for Yowies, the food source here, the number one that they say would be the kangaroos. The wallabies, there's like bush possums, there's all that kind of stuff. There's snakes, whether they eat snakes or not. So it's really
not those dodgy hoop snakes though, eh?
No, not dodgy hoop snakes. You gotta stay away from those hoop snakes. Hoop snakes and drop bears. I'm not good.
We'll talk about drop bears next week. And we got a story for you.
They're pretty vicious. Oh my God, they're like one of Australia's most dangerous animals.
Dangerous.
Cousins to the koalas. They're cute and cuddly, but they're not.
Hey, so I've got some stories about women and Yowies, but I've also got a little bit of a kind of a background. Do you want me to tell you about it?
Yeah, tell me.
Oosh. I'm sure Juliet knows most of this stuff, but I'm going to enlighten her. I picked this information up from a website, which I thought was quite cool. So it says, when the first fleet of 11 British ships arrived in Sydney Cove in 1788, filled with convicts to be deposited on Australian soil and left to settle there. Tell us what really happened. The Aborigines warned them of the Yowies. So this is back in 1788. Only a year later, the new arrivals had their first encounter when returning from a hunting trip. They reported that a large ape-like figure, twice the size of a man, was watching them from the trees at the top of a nearby hill. So I thought that was a really interesting first kind of encounter in 1788. The next significant sighting was made by several people in southern Australia, the first in that region in 1849, or the first to be recorded, right, by Europeans. They described an ape-like creature between 6 and 7 feet tall who was spotted sitting at the edge of a lake. So that's 1849. So 1788, 1849. So there's almost 100 years in between that time.
Yeah.
And obviously other stories coming from Aboriginal populations. And
well, I can give you one other. In 1820, a letter originating from Australia made its way to London. So they were recounting that peculiar incident that occurred there. So that one. So they're talking about the creature where it was watching them, and it was basically kind of stalking them, and that it was standing twice the usual height of what these men. So apparently just they're watching them. Yeah. So that was like, that made it all the way back to London, and into their newspapers in 1820.
Oh, far out. So it's in between that first and second one. Far out. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then it went from 1849. The next one was 1936, and it was a photograph taken by Rich Jones in New South Wales, which is down that east coast of Australia.
Yep.
But that remains highly contested. It's a depiction of two men sitting on a wooden log, and behind them a gigantic figure is sitting with its hands in its lap, chin to chest, looking downwards. I was like, I gotta find that picture. So I'm gonna go and I'll search that picture and see what I can find, because man, could you imagine?
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard trying to find stuff here. So there's there are so many stories. There's, there's a lot more modern stories and stuff like that. People have seen them around their bins and that kind of stuff. But what I'll go into first is like this kind of two types of yowies here that kind of the Australian scene. So what they call is the type 1. So this is kind of going from research and stuff. This is kind of taken from, the Yowie research people and stuff like that. So type 1 is, they're often referred to as hairy men or bush people. They are described as being very human-like in appearance, and they have like a really similar kind of structure to humans. They're very upright, and their kind of height ranges from around 6 to 9 foot. So that's 1.8 to 2.7 meters high. I mean, which is that's huge. That is absolutely, huge. The hair is really described as long and shaggy, kind of really unkempt looking, and colors their entire body. And the color ranges from red to black. So this is kind of the one where the red kind of look, because the yowies always seems kind of like having this red hair. So they've said some witnesses have also noted facial features are more human-like, broad noses, dark eyes, and a really pronounced brow ridge. And these yowies are often associated with behaviors like just observing humans from a distance, kind of retreating, and they're said to be very, very shy in nature. And I know, like in the States as well, the different types of Bigfoot. There's ones that are kind of more human-like, and then ones that are kind of more ape-like. So the type 2 yowies, so these are referred to as the giant hairy beasts or ape-like creatures. And they're kind of depicted as being more animalistic in nature. They're larger, they're a lot stockier and robust, and their height is like 9 to 12 feet, which is 2.7 to 3.7 meters. Yeah. So they're huge. I mean, imagine that walking around and bumping into that.
Well, I guess that kind of gives credence to, there's a fair few stories of truckers and that sort of stuff bumping into yowies on the highways and having them stand with their hands on the bonnet and being able, and then having to bend down,
or driving past and then being eye level, and they're like eyeballing them. And I mean, how terrifying is that?
Like absolutely.
So these yowies are described as being super muscular, the ape-like build with the typical, the long arms that reach below the knees. They have reported observing long, agile fingers and opposable thumbs with a high degree of dexterity. So that's what they're saying. These ones are basically known to have really, really loud vocalizations. Very, very large, the very large footprints, I suppose because of that weight. The other ones, if they're kind of a bit more, very, very territorial and very, very aggressive towards humans. So
makes sense that they're apex, right? If they're that big,
apex. So so these are the ones that they blame being responsible for missing persons in the bush. So, hey everyone, hi, they're coming in. Tactical Bigfoot stuff's come on. The messages. He's useless.
Oh my God.
Still don't know how to use them. Yeah. So these are also said to have like very huge. They got hair on their body, but not as much as the other ones. And one of the big things that they're saying is that they have almost like talons for fingers, so very long, sharp nails. Like very kind of that whole thing of being super aggressive. The head is descriptions have said it's going to be cone shaped. Okay, similar to that of a gorilla. But there are others that have described it as just a large hair-covered head with like pretty much the no neck kind of thing, a very short no neck. And instead of kind of like turning their heads, it's like a body. It's like a body turn. It's not a,
so I've heard that a few times with different accounts that literally their head goes straight into their shoulders. And that's very similar to the Moiho man in New Zealand, where their head literally goes straight into the shoulders. Very, very common.
Maybe that's why the workout guys like doing the little triangle bodies.
Well, I did see one of those at the gym
I
the
did
other day.
too the other day. I'm like, what happened? I'm getting the topic.
I was like,
Triangle body, and then like a little tiny waist. I'm just like, oh, what happened to the rest?
well, and honestly, like I looked at him and I went, wow, you've got massive, tiny head and huge. Moving right on.
Maybe that's what they're going to. Cool. So the facial features is typically described as wide and fat. Oh, wide and flat. And the mouth is said to be very, very large and really thick lips. So like a really big mouth. They have a really large, broad forehead, deep set eyes. Again, the really pronounced bridge. And they're saying that their face is mostly hairless and very leathery looking and kind of like a blackish to kind of like a dark gray skin. Some accounts have mentioned long hair around the cheeks and the chin. But there is also noted, now this is the difference between them, is that this is where the fangs come from. They said that they have like 2 fang-like canines. Yeah, so you see kind of like pictures and depictions of Yowies and they've got these fangs, you know, so that's a real different kind of feature compared to, so I don't really think I've seen any Bigfoot kind of sightings or anything. Tactical Bigfoot, you could help us here. Any Bigfoot that have been seen with giant fangs?
Or anywhere around the world.
Or anywhere around the world, yeah.
Kendak in Indonesia, and they're not said to have fangs. The New Zealand Moiho man and the Bigfoot versions here not said to have fangs. I believe the Yowie is the only kind of hairy
bipedal hominid that has the big fangs. Yeah. So, but yeah, so I mean, you know, and apart from that, you know, you've got your footprints. Most of them, you know, they say display 5 toes, whereas here there is, you know, and I know with the Bigfoot there are additional footprints where they've shown that they've got 6 toes. So, but there's kind of controversy over that going, oh, is it a deformed kind of foot or is it deformed prints or you know, or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
and there's some really big casts, like the likes of Rex Gilroy, who is very, very prominent in the Yowie hunting, or was very prominent when he was alive in the Yowie hunting industry in Australia. He's got a huge number of foot casts, and that's the stuff of giant footprints, you know, like 26 inches in length. You know, they're absolutely massive. And then all you have to do is some formula to go, okay, well, if the foot is this long, then the likelihood of its height is A, B, C, and D. The likelihood of its weight is A, B, C, and D.
Approximate, yeah.
Absolutely. And there's some good formulas, you know, some good mathematical formulas that you can figure that stuff out on. And it really gives credence to, are these Yowies that we're talking about actually Nephilim or giants?
Yeah.
Because they're so big.
Kind of that kind of stuff, yeah. So the other thing that witnesses have said is that they're just kind of saying like more the type 2 Yowies will drop to all fours and then they can basically run and like a spider fashion. That's what they're saying, the way that they run. And basically the speeds that they can get up to is insane. So, which you kind of go, okay, because if they're trying to catch kangaroos, you know, if you're kind of, I'd say, you know, like most predators, they're probably ambush kind of things. But if they're having to do a bit of running, having to chase a kangaroo or something like that, they'd probably need a bit of foot. Tactical Bigfoot just came back and said Squatchometrics or Bigfoot mapping could give us a better idea. Yeah. I've just never really kind of found anything that's kind of talks about fanged. Yeah,
absolutely. I haven't heard it either, but it'd be really interesting to kind of get in contact with some of our friends through the UK and Europe as well, because they have Bigfoot over there, different versions, and that would be really interesting to see if there's any connection through there, and along with our friend Helen over in Nigeria as well, because it would be such an interesting tracking process, right? If you have and you have fangs, then how did you get here?
Yeah. Or is that the way that they have had to evolve being in Australia, basically, because everything is so,
So arid, yeah. But, like if everything wants to kill you, then you have to be able to kill everything.
then you have to defend,
And Bigfoot mapping project, 100%, right? Such an amazing app that he's created. Really fantastic, and definitely something that we want to get involved with this South Pacific stuff as well. So
yeah, we've gone through some of the stuff and kind of looked at the stories, but because that's it. We research like different places, and kind of read the descriptions of them, but nothing's ever kind of come across anywhere else, as far as Bigfoot, that they've had like massive fangs and that kind of stuff, because that is something that you and I have discussed before about having these massive fangs, and what's the deal. But you think about kangaroos are pretty tough to eat.
Oh, that's it, like snakes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Everything's like really tough. Maybe they need them for crocodiles. Crocodiles are pretty thing. Would they eat crocodiles? I don't know. Do Bigfoot eat alligators? That's another.
Well, it's meat, isn't it? What a food source.
Yeah, food source. There's a lot of crocs here.
Hey, can I just point out that potentially we're not seeing any comments from our Instagram followers at the moment, and I don't know how to rectify that. So I'm sorry. We love you all. If you want to jump on YouTube, you can comment on there. But at the moment, we can't see your comments. So sorry. We love you. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Just listen and enjoy. Okay.
Yeah. So I just tried to have a look at it, but yeah.
Nah, can't see it. It's all good though. Hey, so I've got a story. Are you finished, Juliet, or do you have more stuff that you want to talk about?
No, I mean I've got a couple of stories here.
Tell a story first.
Okay, yeah. All right. So this is
let's do a one for one, and I'll tell a story.
Let's do a one for one. Okay. So this what I'll do is I'll do an old story, and then I'll do a newer story. So this is from 1876. This was in the Australian Town and Country Journal. So it reported this following harrowing tale, as I said. On the evening of this memorable day, 2 hours before sundown, the young men and some women went to set their lines, leaving one of their young friends to boil the billy, which is a kettle, guys. Oh, what do you guys call them? A pot. And prepare supper. So basically, they're setting the lines out for fishing. While engaged, the young woman was suddenly startled by observing a man. She naturally imagined at first it was one of her own party coming towards the fire. But on walking closer, she discovered that the appearance to be an unsightly and inhuman, bearing in every way the shape of a man with a big red face, hands, legs, covered all over with long shaggy hair. From fright, she almost became spellbound, but then she screamed and screeched, but unable to run. The men, on hearing such unearthly cries, left their fishing lines and ran with all speed towards their comrade. I love the way they speak these things. On reaching the fire, the monster of alarm was only distant some 50 yards away from them. On them appearing, it stood for a minute or two and then made away for the rocks. Two of the men armed themselves with a tomahawk and a cudgel, not quite sure what that is, and followed this extraordinary phenomena of nature for a short distance up a rocky and rugged mountain, where it suddenly stopped and turned around, viewing the men as they were approaching. So then about 60 yards from this object of terror, the whole shape was like man-like. They called him a slovenly man. He had dark grizzly hair, face, shaggy dark hair, and the back and belly down his legs were coloured of a lighter colour. They called him a devil. So basically, it just kind of stood its ground, and then they kind of panicked and ran back to the fire to the woman. So but before reaching the cab, it said it sidled away into an accessible rocky mount, which basically they're saying that it disappeared in between the cracks and rocks.
Sure.
So that from 1876. So
they're pretty agile, right? So that feeds into the idea that they are harboring in caves or harboring between the rocks or underneath the rocks or whatever, versus kind of living in the bushland, which is few and far between.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's a lot of Aboriginal lore here about he's not the slender man, but like this slender looking, I've forgotten the name of him, but terrifying looking, kind of long, skinny, like a quicken, and the quinquins, and that's they're all kind of like the similar names, basically going into rock crevices, and then even though they're only this small, they can basically slide between them and disappear.
So I've got a really good article on the quinquin, actually. Can I read it for you?
Yeah.
So speaking of that, so I found a really great article from a website called mcccagora.com. You go crazy on that one. It's by a guy called Noah Black. It was written in 2020, so relatively new, and it just gives you a really awesome overview of what the quincan is, right? Like exactly what Juliet's talking about. There are a couple of different depictions and like 2 different variations, and I'll just read you through it to give you a really good kind of idea, because you will see these words come up and you kind of want to know what's going on. So he says, every culture is scared of things that go bump in the night. Modern civilization hasn't quite desensitized us to our fear of the dark quite yet. However, modern civilization's fear of the supernatural are more than likely nothing compared to those of prehistoric humans. Hidden deep in the Australian outback of Queensland lies a set of caves emboldened by paintings and engravings of one of the most mysterious figures in Aboriginal mythology, the quincan, or the quinkin, or the gwingwan, depending on where you come from, right? So this is a place called Lauren, or it's around northern Queensland in Quincan country, and so you can search that as well. And basically there's these rock drawings which will come up onto our Instagram feed in the next couple of days, of these long, slender, like Juliet said, beings with long ears, pointy fingers, that slither in and out of the crevices and cracks of the rock formations, right? However, at the same time, there's 2 different versions of them, and a quincan is also known to be a yowie.
Yeah.
So this is I went down a little rabbit hole here, which I found absolutely phenomenally interesting. I was like, like just went down like a giant freaking rabbit hole. Anyway, so I'm going to totally butcher this, and I'm just going to read through it because it's really, really interesting. So the most common explanation among archaeologists who have worked in the Australian Heritage Commission is that the term quincan is a bastardization of the phrase gwingwan from the Aboriginal Kuku Yalanji language, and that's not how you say that word, and I apologize for saying that incorrectly. Translated, gwingwan represents the concept of a spirit that inhabits the Aboriginal planes of existence known as the dreamtime or the dreaming. So essentially they're in this ethereal supernatural space. Essentially, under the notion, it is thought that the quinquan were depictions of the spirits of Aboriginal people who passed away and were believed to be watching over their families. Conversely, another interpretation of the idea of the quinquan equate to spirits spirits is that the figures are spirits that only inhabit the dreaming, being separate entities from humans entirely. They postulate that they are trickster spirits, and that brings in the idea that they could be yowies. And in fact, there are 2 different versions of these. So one of the more popular theories among modern Australian citizens is that the quinquan are depictions of the yowie, the Australian version of Bigfoot. Aside from the yowie, this creature goes by 7 different names, such as the Yahoo, the Gridargan.
Yeah. We'll put those names up for you. You're like trying to say them, they're like this long.
They're pretty crazy, yeah. The Yowie is a figure passed down through centuries of Aboriginal oral storytelling, resulting in the idea becoming conflated with the quinquan. The Yowie is much a much different entity than Bigfoot, though, as descriptions of the creature vary greatly, is what you were saying, Juliet. Around 12 feet tall, between 6 to 8 feet for the Bigfoot. So a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, depending on what version you're going with for the Yowies. But I thought that was really, really interesting as far as these two very different versions of it, right? So Bigfoot and Sasquatch and over in the States are seen to be biological creatures, very much kind of in the bush. They're, you can go and find, hair samples and all this sort of stuff. And in Aboriginal folklore or culture and mythology, they're very much seen as these spiritual entities that are tricksters that can come and go as they please and change form and all of this sort of stuff. And you're talking, like these rock formation or these rock drawings are said to be 35,000 plus years old. Right. So they've been
and they're very clear. They're very clear. It's not like this kind of and again, it just kind of says that it's in that Queensland, in that New South Wales area. It's not on the other side of Australia. It's all in this kind of area, like from the Northern Territories and and like the rainforests and stuff up there, kind of all that way down. This is where, like, I'd say 90% of these creatures and stuff are kind of found,
Yeah. And the other thing that I found, just to follow on from the Yalanji tribe, is it says from the beginning, the Yalanji tribe belonged to the beautiful country of Cape York. And this is where Quicken country is. They covered the walls of open caves with their paintings, ancestral beings, sacred animals, and the Quickens. The Quickens, spirit people of the land, never allowed themselves to be seen by the Yalanji tribe, yet it was known that there were two groups of Quickens, the Imji and the Tamara. And I don't think that's how you say them, but we'll just say them like that for now. The Imjim were small, fat-bellied, bad fellows with large, ugly heads, long teeth, and claws. Yowies, anyone? They stole children and took them to their caves in the Great Red Mountain. The Imjim had long, knobbly tails that they used like a kangaroo to travel in giant leaps across the land. And then the Tamara was the name of the other Quinkans. They were humorous, whimsical spirits who liked to play tricks on people, but they didn't like the Imjim stealing children away, and they tried to stop them. So
that gives that real kind of, that's that very aggressive side, and then that's that very shy, protective side, and that's a big part of, the Aboriginal lore and the dream time and stuff like that. So the dream time is a concept that the whole land was made by dreams, and that they brought up these people, their ancestors and stuff, basically made the earth, made the trees, made this. And the Yowies are seen as like a really big part of protecting this land. So they're not really seen, but there are, also the horror stories, like we said, there's this protective side, but there's also the horror stories of of coming through for the Aboriginal stories and stuff like that, where these things, they did come in, they took the kids, they ate people, they stole the women, and it's like in the United States with Bigfoot, you've got these sides where you've got this so-called gentle side, and you've got this very aggressive, territorial creature that was also taking women, taking children, killing dogs, killing, and that's kind of the same thing that's kind of happened here. So there's a lot of similarities, but there's also, quite a difference between them. I kind of wonder, how people talk about, you can't find Bigfoot because basically he either goes into like another dimension, or, that kind of slips in between. Is that what's happening here with the Yowies? So, people say, oh, they go up to the rocks and disappear. So is that kind of like the Yowie thing? So that, again, it's a very similar kind of concept of, yes, they're kind of slipping, but they're slipping in between the rocks. You know what I mean? So,
sure.
So you don't need to find the big caves. They can just...
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, and it's such an interesting concept. It's that paracryptozoology, right? It's that cryptozoology with this idea that this is a a creature or an animal that science has yet to identify, but also there's this spiritual ether kind of
paranormal side to it. Yeah. And maybe they're both, maybe, it's kind of, it's a bit of both. So
it's so difficult for us to try and grasp that. Is it so difficult for us to say, as a human race, for us to say these things are part and parcel of each other? I mean, like, if you go back and, to alchemy, if you go back into the ancient books and all that sort of stuff, science, that alchemy was mixed in with that spirituality. They were part and parcel of each other. And as we've gotten into modern times, we've segregated that and said they can't be connected. Science is science.
Well, that's what they've wanted us to be. That's it. It's this whole thing of control. They can't know that these two work. They can't know that like magic is real, or and that kind of type of concept, because then they would lose control. You know what I mean? And that's you look at all kind of folk stories and stuff like that. It's all about the same thing. You're having this magic, you lose control. Like the kings, the queens, or whoever is in power wants the magic. They want that power. They don't want anyone else to have it. So it's really, really interesting.
Yeah. So. And I very, very much believe that as we've gotten into modern times, things have been segregated, and we're trying our best to bring them back together and reconnect those dots, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to get your head around, though, that's for sure. Hey, I've got a story. It's a 1990. 1990. Let's take it back a couple of years. So this was on nexusnewsfeed.com, and it says, a Yowie threw me down a hill.
Oh.
I know, rude.
Rude.
It says Cairns woman's encounter raises supernatural enigma, right? So I'll read you the article, and there's actually a video on here which is super interesting. So if you want to jump on there, go Crazy Town and have a watch. Anyway, so a woman has blown the lid. Oh God, this is so serious. Like that.
Just blew the lid, man. That's it. Drop the mic.
A woman has blown the lid off an encounter with a Yowie, she says, pushed her down a hill with superhuman strength almost 3 decades ago. And if you are from Cairns, you might live next door.
It's so dramatic.
I tell you what, 2 years at drama school for that. Okay, right on. I gotta read it. So this woman was living in Cairns, which is North Australia, and she decided she would climb Red Hill in Woree, Woree, in 1990, back when she was in her early 20s. She said the creature she encountered was absolutely human-like, except for its enormously muscular arms, which hung down to its knees, and a thick shock of dark brown ginger hair covering almost its entire body. Juliet, there's your ginger hair, right?
Ginger hair, yeah.
The conversation with the woman, whose name has not been revealed, was recorded in a video above, so you can watch that on this website here, and added to the Australian Yowie Research Library. And if you do want to go and delve a little bit deeper, definitely jump on that website. There's a bucket load of research on there.
So much stuff. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, they've done an amazing job on that. She said, I looked up to the right, up to the top of the hill as it came out, just in case someone or something was coming down on a bike or something. So essentially she thought it was someone riding a bike down or coming down the hill. And I saw this hairy man, or whatever the heck it was, Yowie, looking down, like it was leaning down, looking at the guy that had come out ahead of me. As I came out of the track, it sort of seen me. Oh my gosh, woman. As I came out on. Oh,
Technical Bigfoot's going. Thanks, guys. Bye.
See you, buddy. I'm a Kiwi, so I'm not going to get into the crappy English of Australians. Should I just get into it? I'm not going to get into it.
No, I just want to skim over stuff like that.
Yeah. As I came out on the track, it sort of seen me and it just totally like looked totally surprised, and it just stood up straight and looked straight at me and glared at me. I remember it had its hands, its arms down by its sides, and its body, the size of its arms and its legs were just really massive. It was really hairy all over, a bit exposed around the chest area, and it was black. There was a little bit of hair, I think, from memory going down between its chest. The face had no hair on it at all. It was much like a person. I remember thinking, why is someone up there in a gorilla suit? Nothing made sense. She said the creature, which was about the same size as her, 170 centimeters high, or a little bit shorter, in fact, let out several guttural roars and ran at her. She turned on her heels and tried to outrun this Sasquatch, or the Yowie. I only got a couple of strides and it just hit me in the back, and I went sailing off down the side of the hill. I don't know how far I went initially. Yeah, 100%. She got tackled by a Yowie. I was just a fair way down the hill, and it was really long grass, and so it broke my fall. I just kept on tumbling down the hill. The terrified woman kept throwing herself down the hill until she got to the bottom, jumped the fence at St. Mary's Catholic College, bolted across the oval, and returned to her car. She said to this day she is convinced that the individual was not a human, although it bore strong resemblance to one.
It's really interesting because what she.
Oh, hang on. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, just a little bit more about its description. So she said it was like a normal person, but it had a really flat nose, a really broad nose, which is what you brought up before, Jules.
Yeah.
She said absolutely human-like. It was ridiculously human. It was amazing. The arms seemed to go down to its knees, or sort of like below its knees. They were really, really long. She said I couldn't see a penis or anything like that. So she doesn't know what sex it was. She said it happened really, really quickly. I didn't really have time to define whether or not it was a male or a female. The woman further described the Yowie as very gorilla-like. Its hands about 1.5 times the size of a human hand, and it leaned forward at an unusual angle while chasing her. She said she did not believe it intended to badly hurt her, though. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, hon.
Yeah, but that's interesting, because they were talking about black leather skin, but that's almost like that's a mix between the type 1 and the type 2, isn't it? So the type 1 is a lot more human-like, whereas the type 2 is like the one that have got the super long arms and stuff like that. So
so it looks like she's also had another run-in. Hold on a second. Hold your horses.
Holding.
She said, I know when I saw one in the Blue Mountains, which is in New South Wales, it was like a bodybuilder covered in hair. She said it had a massive chest, cannonball shoulders, and it was covered in 2-inch thick red-brown hair. It had no neck, and it was just one of these mammoth proportions.
Yeah.
She said this is what we typically found in most of the reports. Sorry, this is
the reporter.
Oh, sorry, this is the reporter. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So really interesting, and I do wonder if maybe she saw a female, and the female was in fact trying to protect her young or
something. Yeah.
It was a lot shorter. It was only 170 centimeters, or a little bit shorter, so kind of almost our height. And potentially it was a female versus one of those large.
It's more get out of my territory, and it was a warning. Yeah,
that's what she said. It could have ripped my head off if it wanted to, but it wanted to scare me and get me out of the space. Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting, and that was in the 90s.
So whereabouts was that?
It was up in Cairns.
On Cairns, yeah.
Yeah, up in Cairns.
Yeah.
So really interesting as far as like a modern-ish sighting goes, and scary sighting, but not an overly aggressive sighting, I guess.
Yeah.
Difference in what you were talking about, type 1, which are the smaller ones, and then type 2, which are the
and the less aggression and stuff like that. Yeah.
Have you got another one?
I've got this. This is made basically this made national news. This was all over the news. right around Australia with these three guys. So this was in Jimna. So this is in, again, Queensland. So, again, it's all these stories kind of come from these similar areas. So this was a small Australian outback town. So with three men were left shaken and filled with fear after what they spotted, claiming it to be a Yowie. On the drive back from work, the trio came across a figure slouched, kind of a slouched over figure. It was under a street light, and initially they thought it was like a wild boar. So, like, I don't know, honestly, go and look up wild boar here in Australia. These things are monsters, a bit like, they can get some pretty big ones over in the States, and I know Hawaii gets some massive ones, but these things are absolutely terrifying. Horrible stories about these things coming in and, taking kids and Aboriginal kids and stuff. Oof. So anyway, so they thought it was a giant boar. They said the figure then noticed them and turned in their direction. It wasn't until they got closer that the figure resembled like a Yowie, like this man-looking creature. They said then it ran away in like a very ape-like way. They said it had a very long arms and an ape-like face. They said they've never experienced anything like that before, and it kind of really shook them up, and they were all kind of like they couldn't really sleep that night. So Seamus Fitzgerald, so he goes, he called it a paranormal experience. He goes, I've never had a paranormal or a strange experience like that before. I couldn't sleep. His workmate Sterling Bennett said that they were like an absolute utter disbelief of what they said, and they said it was like extremely scary. So they said they went on some hikes afterwards to try and see if they could find the creature and stuff again, but had no luck. So he'd never previously, like the boys said that they'd never really previously believed in any of these kind of Yowie stories, because there was a lot kind of up in the area, so like old stories and stuff like that. So Jimina has a population of 91 people. Okay, so it's really small. But it has one of the largest population and sightings of Yowies in that area. So it's really, really interesting. Yeah. So so that was, it was a very brief one, but this was in this was on the 4th of December in 2021. So that was, that was that one. Yeah. And then there was another one that was kind of up in the same area. I haven't got it written down here, but again, it was some guys, and they were basically coming home. They'd been out mining. They'd come home, and basically they had like a big, massive rubbish bin, and a Yowie was actually going through the rubbish bin. And they basically kind of stopped and were like, oh my God, what was that? And then it kind of just stood there and looked at them, like in the headlights. They're kind of like looking at this Yowie going, so there's a lot, we've had stories, and they do hit the news here. We had a whole spate of them back around this time, around 2021. Yes. So about 2020, 21, early 2022, there was a bunch of sightings. People on the roads and towns and that kind of stuff. So
a lot of logging, guys in the logging industry and that sort of stuff, like cutting trees and obviously adjusting the landscape and then annoying these Yowies and coming out to see them.
Well, there's a I can't remember the name of the forest, but like if you look on the Australian map, you got New South Wales, you got like the Gold Coast and stuff. Coming in from there, there's like a lot of bushland, and the sightings in that area are just
mental.
There's loads. So we've got some like little maps and stuff like that we'll put up as well. So it's really really interesting. So
hey, I've got a story. It's called Missing Persons Eaten by Yowie.
Oh.
Straight to the point.
Straight to the point.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was a really interesting article, and I just kind of wanted to throw it out there because I wanted your opinion on it as well. So let me read this article. It is from unexplained-mysteries.com. Missing persons eaten by Yowie, hunter claims. And this is in 2021 by TK Randall is the author. So one Australian man is absolutely convinced that the Yowie, Australia's answer to Bigfoot, is the real deal. Although encounters with large bipedal hominoids are mostly associated with North America and the Himalayas, stories of such creatures have been reported for hundreds of years throughout different countries, including Australia, where we are known locally as the Yowie. Let me just jump in here. Where's the Edie part? Where's the eating part? It says for years, Yowie hunter Jason Heal, who is a very good researcher. He works with the Yowie research group as well. So if you want to research Jason Heal, he is pretty awesome. He said he's been scouring the wilderness around Perth. And I wanted to bring this up because it was in Perth, which is on the west coast.
Which is on the west coast. Yeah, interesting.
So talk about having a lot of encounters through that east coast. There's huge amounts around through there, but there's also a hell of a lot of research throughout Perth and encounters and stuff. He says around Perth in search of evidence that could prove once and for all that the elusive hominoid actually exists. He says he's a co-founder of Yowie Research Group. He and his colleagues have amassed a large collection of sightings and reports. He says he also claims to have witnessed Yowies with his own eyes. He says, I recently saw Yowies running at superhuman speeds north of Bullsbrook. He said, I believe there is a population of Yowies all around the outer suburbs, including Serpentine Dam and Lake Gungara. I think they go to pockets of bush near people and use bush corridors, but because they are moving in early hours of the morning and are incredibly quick, people never see them. Good theory. When it comes to concrete physical evidence, however, Heal maintains that these elusive hominoids are intelligent enough to conceal anything that might give away their existence, 100%. He says he even believes that some of those who encounter them end up becoming their lunch. There are a lot of people who go missing in the bush and the cases remain unsolved, and it is usually put down to a homicide, he said, but I think some of these were the work of Yowies. So I just thought that was really interesting. The fact that he is so well known in the industry, and his view is that Yowies are eating people.
Yeah,
that has to come from somewhere, right?
Which is really interesting because, just put it out there, Perth has got one of the highest records of serial killers as well. So a lot of people go missing up in those areas in WA. So yeah, there are people that have been caught, but they reckon that there's like all these people. Yeah.
So I thought that was I mean, look, we've heard stories, and we talked about this. We've talked about this numerous times in regards to like what the media gives to us, and that these cryptids are Harry and the Hendersons, and these Bigfoot are just really, really happy-go-lucky types of guys, and they're fluffy, and you want to give them.
There's no way that a Bigfoot or a Yowie has eaten somebody, or a dogman, as we were discussing last week. Missing people and dogmen.
So what's the likelihood of, in fact, these things being really aggressive, really gruesome, really hungry, and seeing us as prey, being that they are an apex predator?
Yeah, or it's happened in a territorial way. Yeah, I mean, that's it. So many people go missing in the outback here. That's it. So, and they're never found. They're never found. Bones are never found. Nothing's ever found. They just completely disappear. yeah, I mean, there's got to be. I mean, we can't say that all of them are not going to eat us. That they are predators. You know, it's
100%. I mean,
yeah,
all you have to do is look at sharks, right? Look at a coral reef. If
yeah,
there's no apex predators there, then there's something wrong with the coral reef, right? If there's no great white sharks or something large, then there's something wrong with the coral reef. Something's broken on that reef, right? And they're always expecting there to be a good, solid apex predator there. So we would be stupid to think that humans are the apex predator, because we're not.
yeah. And there's not, apart from dingoes and that kind of stuff, and and you've got you can't really call a snake an apex predator, really, because they're both like to bite everyone. But there's no real apex predators. A dingo is it.
Yeah, because you don't have big cats, right? Australia does not have big cats.
Only the alien big cats.
Yeah.
I don't mean alien big cats. I mean what they call the alien big cats. Like
there's no bears, right?
Yeah.
There's
no bears, there's no wolves, there's nothing like that. So what is keeping this population down of kangaroos and and all of this kind of stuff? There are other things out there. There's got to be other things out there eating them.
Yeah.
And that's we say that they come into kind of areas, like coming towards towns and this kind of stuff, and they're sometimes seen around, or they're on the outskirts of these public places and towns and stuff. And they're intelligent enough to not leave footprints or any signs. So that would also kind of go into the fact of going, okay, if they're going to prey on humans, they're going to know, if they are that intelligent, they're going to know if I just kind of do this in a public way, they're going to know what I've done. But if I'm out here in the bush and there's some random dude walking around and there's no one around, it's like, oh, he's going to be a free snack.
He's my meal, right?
He's my meal. He's miles away from anyone. There's nobody else around because they would know. So they could be seen as like he's either walked into a territorial thing, or they've seen him as this is going to be an easy meal, and off they go. And that's what I mean. So if they are intelligent, does that mean that they're taking the packs with them, the clothes, all that kind of stuff? Because nothing is found, or the occasional shoe is found or something. What did that fall off when they're being dragged away? Or it's
and it's not something that you want to think about, right? You want bigfoot, you want yowies, you want dogman to be friendly so you can make friends with them.
We're going into the bush. We don't want to think about dogmen and yowies and living dinosaurs.
Hey, great segue. Let's talk about next weekend, because it's not this weekend, it's next weekend that we are going to be together in Australia. Friday the 13th, I might add.
How's that? We should really go into the cemetery on Friday the 13th. Let's not do the let's swap those.
No. So, okay.
No.
There's no way I'm going to a fucking cemetery on Friday the 13th. Okay, so for everyone that doesn't know, Julia and I are converging on Brisbane in Australia from Thursday-ish, which is about the 13th, I think, or somewhere around there, of September, which is not this week, but next week.
I haven't even changed my calendar yet.
And so on Friday the 13th, it must be Thursday the 12th. So on
Friday, there we go.
The 13th, we're going to go on a big, giant adventure, if you will, expedition up to a place called Kilcoy. And Kilcoy is Yowie country, which is in Queensland. We're super excited to go there and go and visit Yowie Park, which is in Kilcoy. And I've got a little bit of information just to kind of set you up so that you know what we're going to be doing together. Not only are we together for the first time in 2 years?
2 years, yeah.
Something like that. It's our first kind of expedition in Australia. We have not gone to the bush in Australia before. We may not come back.
We may not come out.
It could go pear-shaped.
Yeah, we're just going to stick close to the town things. As long as we can see buildings, we're good.
I do have travel insurance just in case. I don't want to die. But yeah, so let me just read this through a little bit of information about Kilcoy. So when it comes to tourism, some places have reefs or rainforests, but on Queensland's Sunshine Coast, there's a small town of Kilcoy, and they have the Yowie. So with alleged sightings of the mythological ape-like bush creatures dating back to the late 1800s. This week, what did I say? This week, the community revamped the tourist draw card. I don't know what I'm reading, but okay. The Yowie has been a long time icon of the Kilcoy region. It does great things for tourism. Obviously, from the 1800s, 1842, Mayor Graham Lenihan said after the installation of the new Yowie statue. So this is when the Yowie statue was put up. They've got a giant Yowie statue, which we will be live streaming from. It's such a cool place because there's such amazing encounters from there, right?
Yeah.
And the encounter that basically got the Yowie stuff going in Kilcoy was the story began in December 1979 when two Brisbane students had an encounter while camping in nearby bushland. They were confronted with a 2 to 3 meter brown-haired creature. Yowie hunters and media descended on the small town, and suddenly Kilcoy was the Yowie capital of Australia. They say Kilcoy, that's where they grow peanuts, and I say no, that's Kingaroy, said born and bred local China Macaulay. It was his father who oversaw the construction of Kilcoy's Yowie Park. God. What an article. What the hell am I reading? But
yeah,
yeah,
it's good. So we will we'll bring we'll have some local stories. We're hoping to reach out to the locals and see if there's any kind of more recent stories or any stories that they've heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a lot of stories out there. There's a really cool guy that has Yowie coffee out there. So be jumping on that little coffee trip there. It's a really, really great little township. And we kind of thought, well, if we're in Queensland, what should we do? Obviously, going Yowie hunting is really, really important. And who knows, we'll probably go for a bit of a walk through the bush.
A lot of snakes up there, guys.
Oh shit, yeah. But we will definitely go for a bit of a walk through the bush. So I've never gone to Australian bush before. I've never.
Not really either. So we're gonna have to be a bit careful. No, we're good. We'll follow some tracks. We'll find some tracks, and I'm sure there'll be a nice little walk up around there. And
it'll be fun. And I, there's stories of Bigfoot being telepathically connected, right? That's kind of a going, I guess, idea or theory around Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Moiho in New Zealand, Yowie's telepathically connected. And so I do think that we'll probably go and do some of that and see if we can get some connection going on and see what happens.
The only difference, all I'm thinking in my brain, this is what you think when you're in Australia. Like in New Zealand, you go and sit down on a nice bit of grass in the middle of the field and go, oh, yeah, here you can't because you got bullets out of this bag.
I'm going to die.
And you can't have any food around you because they're like, ooh, food.
I'm probably going to die.
Like, let's go sit on the rocks. Like, I don't want to sit on the rocks. It could be a snake under the rock.
You're really like, and people lump Australia and New Zealand together quite often, right? If you're on the other side of the world, whatever, New Zealand and Australia are totally the same, but we're just totally not. Yeah. Like Juliet says, if you're in New Zealand, you can walk through native bushland with no shoes on.
You can walk barefoot through a beautiful long grass paddock, absolutely amazing. Here, you literally, if you see long grass, you don't walk through long grass.
And look, so
everything's got to be mowed. Yeah, because if it's long grass. Yeah,
I'm going to die. Look, I'm going to die. I think.
There's nothing like, I mean, we do miss that. I miss being on the farm and being able to, go through the grass, walk in a paddock and just have fun. But I just say hi to Auntie Lisa. Say hi. He falls off his chair.
Say hi to everyone. Yeah. So that's what we're doing next Friday the 13th. It'll be super exciting to get involved there. And then Saturday, Jules, what are we doing?
Comic-Con. We're going to do Comic-Con. We're going to walk around Comic-Con and just try and connect with some people there, just have a lot of fun. And then Saturday night, we're doing an investigation in a very well-known hotspot cemetery, which is in the city there, which has had some ghostly stories.
Yeah. And we will be live streaming from these places. If you want to come along on our adventures, all you have to do is pop over to cryptidwomensociety.com and become a truth seeker or a pathfinder, and then you get to join in our live streams from all of these events. So if you now's the time, if you want to buy a gift for someone.
Oh, Christmas is coming up.
Get involved, become a founding member now. So, hey, that's cool. Jules, do you have anything else that you want to share about Yowies while we're flying?
No, I think we've kind of gone through it. Super excited about Queensland, but the whole Yowie thing, it's really interesting. It's more research that we're still looking into. We're hoping to actually make it up at some point to the cave paintings as well. The Blue Mountains would be amazing, and really kind of doing some long-term kind of research on the Yowies and kind of getting into these areas. That would be really, really cool. So
definitely. And I think this is the start of our trips together and our expeditions and our adventures, and taking everyone along on these amazing adventures with us. It's hard to get here when you live in the States, right? It's hard for us to get to the States when you live down here. So if we can take you on an adventure with us, that's awesome. We love showing up on your lives and everything else that everyone's running.
And hopefully we haven't missed too many questions on Instagram. We're sorry about that. So we will next week we'll have everything going.
I'm proud of myself, but not that proud.
Yeah.
But awesome. Hey, drop some DMs to us, some private messages if you've got any questions, or you want us to pick up on any information or anything like that, or you've got some directions. Next week, really important. Next week, Tuesday is not our live. Our live will be on Thursday the 12th. New Zealand 10 a.m. New Zealand 12 p.m. Australia 10 a.m. Eastern Standard about 8 p.m. I believe, and it will be on Thursday the 12th. And what's our topic?
Drop beers and other weird and wonderful creatures of Australia.
Have some little zombie koalas. We'll have the best time ever. It'll be great. They look so fluffy and cute, but really they're there to rip your face off.
I was just checking because it's actually a different time between it's the same time in Brisbane.
No, we're all the same time now. No daylight savings.
We're all good. Cool.
Yeah, we're all good. Back into summertime. Whoop, whoop.
Right. And it will be summer up there. It's going to be warmer weather, so that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we love you all. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for putting up with our technological issues. We love you all. And we will see you next
Thursday. I'll keep an eye out for our drop beers. Bye.
Okay, see ya. Bye.